Right. There we go. Recording. Here we are.
Hello. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll just wait for a couple more minutes and then we'll get started.
This is the time that I always wish that we'd sorted out some hold music.
Well, can any of you guys sing?
Nope. Well, not.
Now I've seen Jamil do some karaoke, so I know he can. For those joining on the call, we're trying to figure out which one of us is going to sing for some elevator music while we wait just one more minute before we start.
What would you even sing?
The votes are coming in. People want Jamil to sing. Jamil, at least sing happy birthday. I've heard you at least do something.
The only I don't know why, but this is the only song that is in my head right now, and it's this one part playing over and over and over again. Of course, it's none other than Queen Bee herself, Beyonce. Because I ain't never seen a feeling in my whole life. That's Words of Blue, Freestyling Lies. What's the song? I'm so not eyes. It's the album her and Hova did together. Yeah, that's I ain't never seen this in my whole life. Words of Blue.
Well, I don't want to pull out any receipts on my iPhone, but I have other singing escapades that you've done. All right. So I am going to kick off. So first off, thank you to everyone for joining. I'm going to share my screen in a second. Give me just 1 second. Oh, hold on. Sorry.
Nice, Nicholas. Greetings from London.
That is a good one. Where's everyone calling from? Let us know. Let us know in the chat. Let us know where you're calling from. Just type in the chat where you're calling from around the world.
Awesome. I was actually going to just start with that. Okay. So first off, let's actually start with some intros. I'm sorry, there's something not loading right. Miriam, do you mind actually helping me share this if this is okay?
Absolutely no problem. Bear with me.
Thank you. All right, so let's kick off with some intros. In a second, she'll pull up the slide. But first off, tell us where you guys are calling in from and let us know where you're at in the world. So first off, my name is Tu. I am the CEO of Remote Year. I've been around for 6 years plus now at Remote Year, traveling on many of the Remote Year programs, and then also doing a variety of roles over the past 6 years. And then today, right now, I'm usually not here in the US, but I'm here for a couple days in New York, and I'm catching a flight in a couple hours to Mexico. So let's go around and hear where everybody else is from. Daniel, do you want to share who you are? And
For sure. Hello, everybody. I'm Daniel. I am VP of Experience Delivery at Remote Year. I have been with Remote Year. It's actually 2 years. Next week will be my 2-year anniversary. I am dialing in from London right now, but I was just chuckling when we were talking about karaoke songs. I would have sung Elton John's Daniel's Leaving Tonight on a Plane, because straight after this, I'll be joining our group in Medellin. So I'll be in Colombia this time tomorrow. Jamil, if you'd like to take the mantle.
Hey, everyone. How's it going? I know someone said that there was a little bit of static on my end. Please let me know if my mic is on and hot and live. And if I need to move around. It's a little windy out here, but I'm Jamil. I am the Director of Community Engagement for Remote Year. I've been around Remote Year. Remote Year has been in my life since 2019. I started as a customer. I did a 12-month journey with Remote Year where myself, along with 25 other incredible people, traveled around the world. We actually got cut off in month 8 because of March 2020. We all know what happened in March 2020. And now I am over the department that puts on all of our great programming. So our digital series, our local meetups, our Nation Fest that we have coming up here in Mexico at the end of the month, which is a 4-day incredible immersive experience where food, local immersion experiences, nightly parties and turn-ups, it just all comes together under one roof. We're really excited. This is our second one that we're having. So welcome everyone. We're so happy to have you all here, and I'll kick it back over to you two.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Miriam, are you able to share this?
Hi, everyone. Welcome. And my name is Miriam, and I'm based in Ghana. I'm currently in Ghana, so I'm hoping to see a few folks joining from Africa as well. I'm the community manager of Remote Ear. And as you get to know us, you know that I come in to manage our hub and also organize digital events for people like you and anyone who'll be joining Remote Ear in the near future.
Great. Okay, thank you. I'm going to attempt to share my screen again. Just 1 second. Awesome. So today, guys, why are we all here? So first off, you're taking time out of your busy schedule. So we really appreciate that. I actually hosted an Ask Me Anything on Instagram Live a few weeks back, and we got such a great outpouring of questions from everybody about what Remote Ear was, what remote working is like. So we thought that we'd actually do this again, and this time address some of the top burning questions that we've gotten over the past 7 or 8 years here at Remote Ear. And then we also want to make sure that we leave some time at the end of this call to address any of the questions that you guys might have as well. So at any time in this call, if you have any questions, feel free to pop that into the chat. We're going to compile all of those and then open those up towards the end and address some of your other burning questions that you might have. Also, the people on this call, the reason why I've asked some of my friends to join this call today is I wanted to give you guys an insider perspective from the people who actually travel and engage with the Remote Ear community the most across our team. So again, great heavy hitters here, but also people that you're very likely to see on the road with Remote Ear. All right, so next, so what are some of the top burning questions or concerns that people have about Remote Ear? So as you may know, we've had 5,000 plus people travel with us for the past 7.5 years. And we do what's called an onboarding survey, where when they first join Remote Ear, we capture some of the big burning questions or some of the concerns that they have. Here in front of you, you can see just even over the last 1,000 remote participants that we've had on our programs, we polled them and asked what some of their biggest concerns were as they were starting their Remote Ear journey. The top one was Wi-Fi won't be sufficient for my needs. Number 2, managing the workload and travel can be challenging or difficult. I'm not sure if I will fit in with the community. Just concerns about safety in general. Concerns about lack of diversity. And then number 8 is feeling or getting homesick while traveling. So we hope that actually during the next hour, we're going to be able to address a lot of these concerns that you have and hopefully give you more perspective on how some of these will change as you actually join Remote Ear. Okay. So first off, the question on productivity. So we all know that we are blessed to do something like Remote Ear and be able to travel and work remotely because we're able to stay productive. But a lot of people had questions on, is it really possible to stay productive while traveling? How will I juggle fun and work, time zones, and work schedules? So actually, I just want to open up to the guys on this call, but how do you guys stay productive while traveling, especially on Remote Ear?
For me, I actually find it relatively easy. Like, I think when you're traveling around, when you don't have the distractions of like maybe your home life and sort of work, commitments outside of work, it frees up a lot of time, you know, when you don't have to do those chores. But there's other things as well, just making sure that I have my time zones correctly set. I think that's one of the catch-alls, or when, you know, when you don't set the correct time zone and you end up booking meetings when you'd rather not. But for me, it's about just keeping routine. So I'm somebody who loves a routine. So as soon as I go to a new location, I make sure that I've got the tools around me to set up that routine. So it's things like I really enjoy going to the gym and doing exercise in the morning. So that's the thing that makes me feel productive. It's not just my workload, it's also making sure that I stick to that routine. And that really helps me.
Yeah, I definitely plus one that one. I'm a huge work from home advocate. I'm one of those people who this was made for me. I'm not easily distracted by, you know, the TV or the phone ringing or anything. Once I'm locked in, I'm locked in. And working in an office for me is distracting, right? You have people walking by, you have people popping their head into your office, asking you questions. There's just so many different ways of getting distracted. So for me, this work from home, or work on the road setup is perfect for me. I think the one thing that helps me stay productive is my ability to stay agile and flexible, right? Because when you work for a global company like Remote Year and other companies out there, you're not the only one working in a given, you know, 8-hour or 10-hour workday, right? So if you are able to stay as flexible and agile with, you know, but also stern in your work hours, I feel that helps with productivity. Of course, as Daniel mentioned, setting time zones. So if there are cross-functional teams or managers or other team members that you work with, for example, Miriam, the community manager, and myself, she works with, you know, on my team, and she's in Ghana, which is about 6 hours ahead of me. So, you know, just understanding that what works for me may not always work for her, but her understanding that she's in the Eastern Hemisphere, she has to be a little bit more flexible to accommodate for time zones around the world. So
Awesome.
I
Yeah.
actually, I was gonna say, I actually somebody, I don't really like working from home, no matter where I am. And that's why I really value just finding a decent workspace. For me, it's about being surrounded by other people who are working as well. That kind of sort of keeps me on track and stops me from walking to the fridge every 5 minutes as well. So for me, I'm the opposite. I actually prefer to work from a workspace and just be in that professional environment.
Yeah, and I think just to go back, for some reason it wasn't showing up the previous question, but first off, let's just start with what is Remote Year? So for those who are joining this call and haven't already scrubbed every single page of the website, Remote Year is a platform that enables professionals to live and work remotely while traveling around the world as part of a community. So Remote Year handles all the logistics. So, you know, when you come onto a Remote Year program, you get the obvious benefits, right? So you get your accommodation set up, your workspace, like Daniel was mentioning a second ago, with great Wi-Fi that allows you to stay productive while you're traveling. And then we have a local team in every city that actually curates all of the experiences and puts those local experiences and community building experiences together. And then depending on if you're traveling between programs or cities or not with us, there may be flight and transport included as well. So there's a lot of inclusions, but really it's about Remote Year taking care of all the logistics so that you can just focus on being productive and also exploring the world. So that's just Remote Year in a very brief kind of summary. And then on Remote Year, what you can expect in every single city, as you guys know, is that whenever you show up, there will always be a workspace. So that for me is a huge blessing as somebody who's been living and working remotely for almost a decade now, that I know I can show up in any sort of city, no matter where it is. And I spent a lot of time traveling through Asia, Africa, Europe, Latin America. And I know that whenever I show up, there's going to be a standard of workspace that enables me to be productive. So that's number one. And the other thing I wanted to highlight that Daniel mentioned is to have a productive environment. It's also about the people around me as well. We've all been on vacations where we pulled out a laptop and our friends said, wait, close that laptop. Why are you working? And as much as I love my friends, I love traveling more with people like me who are remote working or digital nomads around the world, because it means that I am surrounded by people who understand that it's about work-life integration, that sometimes I'm going to be working or I'm going to go to a cafe, I'm going to pull out my laptop. And so it doesn't feel like every day is a vacation, but it's actually very much about integrating your life together between work, travel, and everything else that you have going on. And the other couple of things here is how will I juggle fun and work? So what you guys will know is that every single month, our team does a really great job of calling out what is going to be your experience calendar for the next month. So we have our own internal experience marketplace where we have a bunch of curated experiences. So somewhere between 10 and 15 in every single city. We try as best as we can, because we have people working all kinds of time zones and hours on our programs, to have a variety and diversity of times that we do experiences. So some might be, 1 or 2 hours in the morning or afternoon or evening. We try to reserve day trips and weekend trips for the weekends, for instance, but there's so many that you can choose from depending on your schedule. And then again, like I mentioned, 70 or 80% of our program are people who do work remotely full time. And so that means that there's always going to be some amount of people in every program that are working different time zones. So there tends to be kind of like a really cool sub community that happens of people working morning shifts, afternoon shifts, evening shifts, or night shifts. So that's a lot of fun also to just be around people like that. And then finally, I would just say, because you know your schedule ahead of time, it tends to be much easier to kind of work that out with the rest of your team or company, wherever you're working from, to let them know your work schedule. And because you know what the experience timelines are ahead of time, you can schedule around your work as well. All right, any other thoughts on productivity that you guys have heard or experienced?
No, it's just exactly to echo your point. Like, I think historically, or potentially pre-pandemic, when like working remotely was kind of saved for that sort of stereotypical of somebody maybe who works in tech, and sort of people sort of maybe didn't do a full-time job. That's completely changed now. So like, I think it's, as you said, too, over 70% of the people who travel on remote year are working full-time, which not many people expect. So many, when I tell my friends what I do and who I work for, I'm always asked like, oh, who's the typical person who travels on remote year? And when I tell them kind of the types of people, because there's no one typical person, but when I tell them, everybody's really surprised at just how professional the community is and sort of the levels of the work that people do. Yeah, which is quite interesting. And I think sort of having that group around you really sort of helps you stay on track. Definitely.
Awesome.
If
Great.
I could also answer that question, like what is remote year? From my perspective, remote year is a vehicle that transports people into spaces, destinations that, for me, I was, not invited to, right? I didn't know that, my presence or my existence on a global scale was as important as it is until I joined Remote Year. And Remote Year showed me what it truly means to be a global citizen. So often we are stuck in our little bubble, in our little community, our little town, our city, or even our state or even our country. And the world is so much bigger than that. There's so many people out here, so many different things to experience. And Remote Year for me really allowed me to see myself on like a world stage and what my role is in that. And that role is important and is impactful. So that's always how I answer that question. Like, what is Remote Year? It's a vehicle. It's a vehicle to ascend you into spaces that you didn't even know existed, in so many different ways.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that.
I just thought of something else to say as well too. So is that, and I think we'll come on to it about preparation, but something that we sort of try to get everybody to think about when they're all getting ready for a trip is just about respecting boundaries. And we sort of call out some of the different boundaries that people have and different things to think about. And one of them is thinking about other people's workloads and thinking about other people's working hours. Because we're really conscious of that. And so we sort of make sure that we try to do as much as we can to make sure everybody else is conscious of that, going in, just being respectful. So you'll find that I think people are concerned about maybe missing out, and maybe they've got to stay late and do something and they might miss an experience. And actually you'll find that many people are doing the same. And if you have to miss something, you won't find other people like badgering you, saying, come. There's not that kind of pressure, which I think some people might be nervous about.
Exactly. I mean, at the risk of being very, very honest, I was actually at a travel summit this past Saturday and someone was asking me that question. And I kept telling people, I was like, I've been traveling and working remotely for a very long time, but what I'd never forget about is where my bread is coming from. So if you know that the reason we're all doing this is because we have an incredible way to fund it, whether that's through self-employment, through a company, retirement, or us just taking a sabbatical, I never let, any of my fund come in between that. And so I just make sure that I'm very good at putting routines, calendars, schedules up so that I can accommodate all of the things that I want out of life, the fun and the work.
Yeah, we actually say that. That's one of the things we say is work facilitates travel, and we shouldn't forget that.
Yep, exactly. Perfect. So along that question, we get a lot of questions all the time about people saying, how do I convince my employer to let me go on something like remote year? How do I sell this? What do I say? Obviously, you guys have had to deal with this a lot. What do you guys say to that?
Yeah, it's a conversation I have quite a lot with people. And the first thing I would say is, please do speak to your employer, because if you're not sure, please do. I've seen too many people, think, oh, it's all fine. And then at the last minute and not seek approval. And then at the last minute, like, my boss has found out, they won't let me go. Like, oh, because we can support anybody, who might have some objections from their employers. It's actually because of COVID and because so many more companies are now facilitating, allowing people to work remotely. There are so many more studies now that really document the benefits of working from anywhere, and whether that's related to increased productivity, it's like 20% more productivity, and well-being is vastly improved. There's so many, as I say, studies that now show the benefits. It's much easier to convince an employer. And when you add in all the stats, like 75% people working remotely are working full-time, I think it's really easy for us to dispel this conception that actually working remotely means really you're just traveling and just like doing minimum amount of work each day. And I can assure you that's not the case at all. And we work with people, like if anybody signs up for a program or before, like we've got a nation support team, and help everybody get onboarded. And we've got lots of case studies that show the value of working remotely. We've got lots of testimonials from employers who said that they've seen huge benefits from their workforce. We can provide everybody with a list of all the companies that people work for. We've got documents that back up kind of like tax is a big one that people get nervous about, or, there's a big question like, well, if I'm working in a different country, do I not need a work visa for that country? And the answer actually in the whole is no. We have spent a lot of time and money getting the resources together, working with consulates actually and embassies that show that it's okay to be in a country and working remotely. If you're working, I don't want to go too much detail, but like we've got all the documentation that back people up. So when you say, how do you sell this to your boss? I'll say, actually, well, let us help you do that with you.
Absolutely. And how do they reach out if they want that help?
So we've got, as I say, a nation support team, Lorena and Rodo, who've been working, between them, I think they've both worked for Remote Year for at least 5 years each in various different roles. And they nation support team. So it's just nation@remoteyear.com. And they will be more than happy to provide the support you need.
Awesome. So that's nation@remoteyear.com in case you didn't catch it already.
Yeah, it is actually. Also, just say, like, I've spoken to plenty of employers as well. Like, I'm more than happy to get on a call and have those concerns with people's HR departments, with people's employers, and just talk about what their concerns are. My job isn't to, our job isn't to convince people. It's just to give them the facts and then let people sort of make up their own minds. But there's some very positive facts about working remotely.
And if I could piggyback on that for a second, I know Daniel said, definitely tell them. I actually echo that. It's really funny because a funny little anecdote is when I first started Remote Year over 6 years ago, remote working was still quite new for a lot of people on our programs. And there was one guy I met in the first couple of weeks of working who had managed to join a 12-month program without telling his employer. And he made it pretty far. I'll put that hand down, trying to tell people. But he joined Remote Year, didn't say anything, and he lasted, I think, all the way until month 6 or 7 before it was found out. And obviously, he had like some issues with his computer. He had to ship it back. There was VPN issues. And that rarely happens, with a lot of our participants, but that was a rare case. And what I tell people now is that was 6-7 years ago. Now the world's changed. COVID, what it did accelerate was remote working in a big way. So what's been really great is that, 6 or 7 years ago, the same companies that told us that they would never let their employees go on Remote Year were actually calling us and asking, how do we create an employee program for them? Or how do they get more people to talk about Remote Year within their company? So the market's completely changed. And some of those companies now, we have 5 or 6 employees joining us from some of those those companies now. And we've had probably thousands of companies represented from our remote participants. And so there's usually, if you reach out to us also, there's probably someone we might know from your company or have some perspective on how they might have talked about this with their company as well. But don't let this be a barrier, and please reach out to us because we have a lot of experience talking to you and employers and helping you get some of those resources to have those conversations. Great. Actually, one last thought that I'll just mention is I know there's a lot of alternatives, but one of the things that I've heard from employers that they really appreciate about Remote Year is the structure and the infrastructure in general. So knowing that employees from their companies are coming on and that there's a workspace in every single place, that Wi-Fi is something that we're always concerned about, and making sure that it is stable and responsible and reliable for our employees on our programs is a huge help to them, and knowing that they're surrounded by a professional community. So again, these are all really great talking points that have really helped employers get on board. All right, so we're gonna move to the next one. Timing is everything. So what if I'm not able to commit to 1 month, 4 months, or 12 months? What other options are available? First off, remote,
Yeah, right.
not just a year or 12 months, as the name may say. But yeah, Jamil, you want to share some perspective?
Yeah, to piggyback off what Tu just mentioned, Remote Year, contrary to our name, we're not just a year program. We do have a 12-month program, but our product type expands far beyond that. And it really does speak to wherever you may be in your life, right? If you are someone who likes to take, regular vacations every quarter, we have something in mind for you. If you're someone who is fully nomadic, we have something in mind for you. If you're someone who just like, I just need a weekend getaway, or just like something really quick, or maybe I just want to be involved with, something online, we have something for you as well. So we have, of course, we have our, our standard programs, 1 month, 4 months, 12 months, but we also have our local meetups where we go into a city and put on some type of programming. We've had a local meetup in Rio this year for Carnival. We have one coming up in June for Juneteenth in DC, which is, different weekend activations. Are, as I mentioned before, our Nation Fest coming up at the end of May, which is another weekend activation. We have our global adventures, which is a number of days. So it's not just for one type of person. You can be in any different stage of your life, whatever needs you want. If you don't have the ability to travel right now, but you still want to be a part of some type of travel community because travel is important to you, it's a passion for yours, we have our online community that you can be a part of. Our internal app, it's called the Hub. And it's just resources and people from all over the world. So if, whenever you are ready to travel to another city that you've never been to, you can go into one of our spaces and say, hey, I'm going to be in Amsterdam in June. Anybody in Amsterdam? And guarantee there's a percentage of our nation who, who, if they're not going to be there, can give you tips, resources like, hey, stay at this place, or my friend is there, or yes, I'll be there. Let's meet up for coffee. So there's definitely something for everyone with Remote Year, depending on, no matter what timing looks like for you and where you are in your life.
Yeah, and if you're looking for programs, by the way, like Jamil said, there's so many. If you go onto our website, remoteyear.com, and you go to find a program, you're able to filter down by any kind of way that you're looking for it, whether that's the destination, so which region or what country you want to go to, or what timing of year. Everything is chronological. So if you're looking for something in June or something, in October or November, you're able to filter by all of those factors. And again, so just to wrap it, to make sure that you heard that. So we have 1, 4, or 12 months. Those are our traditional remote work and travel programs. But on top of that, what Jamil was saying is that there's so many other ways that you could participate in Remote Year once you're part of our community. So things like Nation Fest, which is a 4-day, a multi-day festival for our community members, like the one that we have coming up in Tulum, or 1-week global adventures in really awesome places around the world, like Kyrgyzstan, Panama, Bolivia, Chile, for instance. So we curate a lot of those great adventures as well. And then we have constant, digital series and other things, local meetups in places around the world that you could connect with Remote Year. And if you happen to be popping into a city, for instance, for a weekend, and you want to connect with the community, again, our digital hub facilitates that, and you're able to join for a few hours experience if there's room as well. So plenty of ways to get involved. Go ahead, Daniel.
I just thought about something as well, and I don't know if people have thought about this, I'm sure they have, but we actually get a lot of people who want to, well, they think they want to do a 4-month, but they're not sure. You said if they can commit, whether it's kind of like they're not sure if they're going to be able to adjust properly with the time zones or just like the traveling and work schedule. Actually, a lot of people do a 1 month as like a trial, even though it seems like a large commitment, and then eventually we'll do a 4-month. So if you can do 1 month, that's a good way to test the waters to see whether a longer period is right for you. And that happens quite a lot.
Awesome. Yeah. And actually, thanks for bringing that up. We actually have people joining for what they call just 1 month, and then 7 or 8 months, they're still traveling with Remote Year around the world. So again, it's pretty flexible because we have very many options for you to kind of choose from in terms of timing and location.
Can I just tell you something that I've always spotted? It's always quite funny. Any program that I'm on, people always, you start at the beginning of the month and they're like, oh, I'm flying home, or I'm going back at the end of this month. And I can assure you, I'm not joking, the majority of people by week 3 are like, oh, I've changed my flight, or, oh, I wish I could change my flight. And that's not me just saying, that really does happen. And it's a large amount of people who regret committing to a return flight at the end of the month. Because by the time you spent, a month with people, you've made friends, you realize there's loads of other people who want to sort of carry on living this lifestyle, and then, they're readily available to you. So it's a great opportunity to carry on.
Exactly. Everyone who says that they won't change their mind always changes their minds. That's why I'm team one-way flights. Stay open. All right. So next question that we have is on community and belonging. So some of the questions we've heard is, who are the type of people traveling on Remote Year? Will I fit in with the community and people traveling? How do you curate community, and how do you create impact, especially for local communities? So maybe we can start first with who are the type of people traveling on Remote Year? And I'm actually just going to flash this up for a second, because I think this helps explain a little bit about who our community is. So first off, we have over almost 8 years now. We'll be celebrating 8 years in June. We've had over 5,000 people participate on our programs, our 1 month, 4 month, or 12-month programs. Across the board, we've had about 50 nationalities represented, and I think that might hopefully be even bigger than that. But again, from all swaths of lives and backgrounds. Our age range is quite diverse. So we've had anywhere from someone who was 21 years old all the way up to 77 years old, and everything in between. I would say average age is probably hovering around like 30, 31. But again, we're seeing a wide range of diversity in terms of age range on every program. And then we have, this number fluctuates all the time by program, obviously, but across the board, we have about 42% people of color currently. So again, Black or African diaspora, Latino, Hispanic, and then Asian travelers as well. And that number continues to grow for us throughout our history. And then we're really also proud of this, but LGBTQ plus is also a huge part of our community, about 14%. And again, on some programs higher or lower than that, but really great to see that participation across the board. And then consistently throughout our history, we've always been really strong among women as well, joining our program. So about 65% of our community today is women. So we're super excited and proud that this is something we really focus on across the board at Remote Year, is in driving a diverse, representative, and inclusive community that represents basically the world that we want to be a part of. So this is a quick, just kind of overview on our stats, but maybe I can ask some of those other questions, on Daniel and Jermil. You guys obviously like travel a lot like I do on Remote Year programs. What have you guys like seen, and how do you answer when people say, will I belong or will I fit in this community?
Right, it's actually one of the biggest. So just to explain, part of my role as I help a lot with the people who, when they sign up with the program, and that's the teams that I work with, making sure that people have got the information they want. And so a lot of people's concerns and all of that is kind of like I'm very aware of, because that's what I'm dealing with day to day. And look, will I fit in with the community, as we saw in the slide, is one of the biggest concerns that people have. And again, like community is something which is not tangible, that feeling of kinship. And yet it's one of the biggest takeaways that anybody has from remote year. And again, it's easy for me to say that, but again, we have hundreds upon thousands of testimonials of people being like, oh, I joined up for remote year because I wanted somebody to take care of all the logistics. But actually what I really got from it was this sense of community, lifelong friends, people to carry on traveling with, all those kind of things. So whilst many people are concerned about fitting in with the community or a community, I can assure you that's never really the case for most people. I also just want to say, like, it's absolutely normal, I think, to feel nervous for anybody about taking this leap. I think about it, and like, we so rarely, in our age, sort of 30s, 40s, it's so rare that we actually expose ourselves to a new community. Like, we do it a lot, like at school, and then you go to college maybe, or university, or you join clubs, and then maybe you move cities. You know, you're quite sort of in those transformative years, you're quite used to meeting new people. And then, you know, we change jobs a lot, sort of at starts of our career. But that actually happens less and less frequently as we get older, we settle down, we plant roots maybe. And so it's absolutely, you know, it's absolutely understandable that we all get a little bit nervous. I still do. I'm 42. And if I've got to go join a new gym, I still get a little bit nervous. But we don't really talk about it because you feel like, oh, I'm old enough, I should be brave. But actually, you know, it's not the case. Like, a lot of us don't shed that anxiety of meeting new people, but we all feel the same. And that's what we hear from everybody. But yeah, just rest assured that you're not the only person feeling like that.
Yeah, and to piggyback off that, what Remote Year does really, really well is curating opportunities and spaces for people to connect with other people, with other like-minded individuals, or people who have similar interests as you, right? Whether you're interested in positive impact, right? There's always a positive impact initiative on every program that we have. So you're able to meet and join up with people who are passionate about sustainable travel, you know, going green and just doing things for the community in different places that we go. If you're passionate about, you know, turning up every night, right? Remote Year doesn't explicitly do things for that, but you will find people in a program who you're like, this is my turn up buddy, right? Like, we go and we hit every disco, et cetera, et cetera. You know, especially with, as long as we've been in each city, that's expanded not just to people in your community, but people in each city as well, right? We have city team members, city managers, city coordinators, and then like some of the vendors that we use, some of those individuals have become a part of the Remote Year family as well, where it's like, hey, I'm the one that puts on the do it on a van tour for Medellin, but like, I always love hanging out with the Remote Year people because, you know, I can provide an additional way of getting into the community a little bit more, or experiencing the food a little bit more, or, you know, just kind of getting off the beaten path. So the Remote Year platform definitely bakes in opportunities for people to kind of break that initial barrier of like, how do I do this? How do I jump in? By sort of guiding you into it a little more and more. And it's a little daunting at times. In my program, I was fortunate to not be the only person of color. There were actually 6 Black people on my program, one of which was this gentleman from France. And just that barrier alone, right? Not barrier, but just that factor alone, cultural differences, you know, he, though has been Black his entire life, now he's, you know, around 5 Black Americans. So he's like, oh, now this feels a little rocky for me. But because we all had that common denominator, we all found a sub community within our community that tied us together, that could only be possible because Remote Year put us in the same space for 8 months. So
Jimmy, I was just wondering about your experience, because I think we've kind of explained that there's teams that sort of support, and one of the roles is the community leader, who's there. They are embedded within the community. They're full-time staff with Remote Year, whose sole job is to sort of facilitate a healthy, productive, positive environment. And, you know, they're there to sort of well, to facilitate community, as the job title suggests, to do it kind of like in the background, like puppet master. Not that people are puppets, do you know what I mean? Sort of making things happen, I should say. So I just want to talk about that, I suppose. I'm hoping that your community leader was also instrumental in some of that sort of forming a healthy community in your experience.
Absolutely. My community leader, she was Australian, but she was also a thespian. So she was a creative, an artist. So she was always finding creative ways to get our community to break our mold, to meet each other where we were, but to also just kind of keep each other and hold each other accountable. I remember one of the very first group sessions that she put on for us was a group dinner surrounding the topic of microaggressions, right? So in this session, it allowed everyone to sort of understand where we fall in this microaggression spectrum. And then from that, we turned it into a little bit of a game for the remaining of the months, where if someone said something microaggressive, we were just like, okay, micro, right? We just kind of called it out in a fun way, but still called it out so that, that wasn't permeating through our group throughout the entire time that we were traveling. Again, that one little thing that my CL put in place allowed for so many connections to continue to be built, and just kind of help people set boundaries with each other so that we could all, be on this journey together in the most cohesive way as possible. So to Daniel's point, the CLs are very, very intentional with how they curate and come up with different, group activities, group events, and different sessions, so that, depending on what journey you're on, it could be a long time, right? 12 months traveling with the same group of people, like that can be really, really long. And after a while, you obviously see a dip. And so a dip in just like morale, it kind of gets monotonous. So the CL, as we call them, they're responsible for keeping the life cycle and the liveliness of the group going, so that the most people finish their journey at the end, but not just finish their journey, but come away with something that they'll never forget. Because I know that's exactly what my CL did. I'll never forget my CL, nor every participant in my program, by and large part because of the intentional programming that Remote Year as well as my CL provided for us.
Yeah, and I'm so glad that you guys brought that up, because I think, we started off this call talking about what is included in Remote Year. And that's the first thing that people look for, is like, what kind of apartment am I going to stay in? What's the workspace like? But what they all walk away in every single end of program survey is actually talking about the community. And, some of these guys like already highlighted this like earlier in their responses, but some of it is, what Remote Year does really well is help people connect in sub-communities, people who are like them, and then also expose them and introduce them to people who are not like them. And I think it's that balance of doing both that makes the community so special. So on the sub-communities piece, for instance, what people think about is the community is only the people that I'm traveling with. But when you're part of Remote Year, there's actually a much bigger community. It's all the other people you didn't travel with that you might travel with, or just actually see online or at some of our events around the world. So in our digital hub, for instance, what we call it, there's ways for you to connect, in 150 groups, for instance, on people who are foodies or LGBTQ plus, for instance, or, Black people who travel, or developers on our programs, tech people, finance professionals. Literally, if there's a group that you're thinking of, gamers, for instance, there's probably a group that exists as a sub-community in our community, which is really incredible to be able to connect that way. And then the other thing too is people who are different from you. I've sat at many of these dinner tables that were curated with so much intentionality from the community leaders, or even just the groups themselves, where there were conversations happening between people. For instance, someone, who lived on a farm their whole life versus someone sitting next to someone who was a city person, born, in a high-rise tower, and had lived that life the whole time, or people having really deep philosophical conversations about politics, governments, or just things that are usually kind of harder to talk to to somebody about. So I really enjoyed the fact that, you know, there was ways for people to connect with people who are similar or different from them throughout the program. And it's, again, what you put into the types of relationships that you have. But a testament to how strong the community bonds that are built over remote year are, you know, at the end of each remote year program, and 5 or 6 years later, or even 5 months later, we see how many relationships, for instance, professional ones that were built on remote year, where people joined up forces and started a company together, or they hired one another for each other's companies, or introduced them to other jobs. There's personal relationships, like love, romantic relationships that have come out of it, babies that have come out of it, and honestly, just a lot of best friendships and lifelong friends and companions that people have found through a program that they did not go on necessarily seeking out community, but walked away with that as the #1 benefit of going on something like remote year.
You know, it's absolutely right. And actually, there's one thing I want to talk about, is the age. We do have a minimum age of 21 because, you know, we're a professional sort of community. But that age range of 77, that's not because we have a ceiling. That's just because that's the person with the most amount of years who's traveled with us. So if there's somebody who's 85 that wanted to come along, then we'd be having that conversation and say, right, great, come on board. And that's one of the things for me that I always find most heartening to see is on programs that age just doesn't really play a factor. Like I've seen 24-year-olds become really close with people who are sort of in their 60s. And it's really lovely to see how sort of people learn from each other and form those bonds. Because again, in the day-to-day, like you don't necessarily get opportunity to meet people of a massive different age and form those friendships. It's really nice.
Yeah, to that point, Daniel, I think in our normal everyday lives, we're all so siloed in like our experiences, and the world only revolves around what we're going through. And that's the most important thing. The thing that remote year does within the community is it puts you in a situation where you all will be experiencing the same kind of thing, right? You're all experiencing this new country together. You're all experiencing this new food together. You're all experiencing these new sounds, these new people, these new everything. So when you have that equation, that camaraderie where you have a community to go back to and say, hey, what did you guys think of that, you know, that show that we saw, or what did you think of that, you know, that experience that we did? I've never done anything like that, or I'm afraid, or, you know, how did this make you feel? Like having a community to travel with you as you go through these experiences is such an invaluable asset that I haven't been able to replicate in any other type of like community outside of remote year. And that's with everybody. If we're not getting as granular as like race and age and, you know, creed and culture and all of those things. If we're talking about just remote year community, immediately when you join your program, you already know these people. Why? Because of the intentional programming. I know for Nation Fest, we plan a who all gonna be there event, right? Because when you're thinking about events, it's like, who all gonna be there? So we plan a who all gonna be there seminar so people can see each other, meet each other, introduce each other. Oh, you're coming in from Atlanta? Oh, I'm coming in from Atlanta. Maybe we can meet up and go to brunch before we head out to Mexico. So when you join in this new city that you've never been to, at least you already have some type of bond connection with people in your group, which I love that remote year does that.
Exactly. Awesome. I'm going to go through some of the questions. Let's do these in just like a minute each, because I want to leave some time at the end for us to address some of the chat questions that are coming in as well. So how do I prepare for my trip? What resources do you offer to help me prepare for my trip? Daniel, this is probably a good one for you.
That's for me, right, quickly. And so as I mentioned earlier, we do have the Nation support team. So they're there to sort of help you through that timeline of everything that you need to do. So we'll give you like a checklist of things you need to think about, whether it's visas, and give you visa resources and details about passports and things like that. All the things you probably need to think about. And then also we do a series of webinars. So as soon as you sign up for remote year, we talked about like what's the timeline between now and when you travel, regardless of when or where you're traveling to, and how you use our digital platform. And as I say, we sort of keep you abreast. There's a series of workshops that we do that sort of ramp up just before you then take part in your trip. And the Nation support team host weekly meetings for everybody, just like coffee hours. Like weekly meetings is a bit formal, but just like drop-in sessions. So we're always available whenever you need.
Yeah, and I think what's great about that is that's the whole lead up to when you're joining a remote year trip. So those are things that remote year curates and puts on. Also, once you join a program or our community, you immediately get access to our digital hub community. And there's so many great resources there as well of past webinars or just resources that you can check out. You can check into any of our destination sections as well to find out a little bit more about the places you're going to travel to. And then finally, when you actually get on the ground, to me, that's actually one of my favorite things that helps you prepare is that in every city that you come to, we have a local team that's actually sitting there and giving you a really great city welcome and orientation. Usually those last for a couple hours, but it covers everything from, cultural context, like do's and don'ts as you come into a place. What's the overview or the historical perspective about that city, country, or culture? What are things to watch out for? Safety tips, or just even where to get food or how to get around, which apps to download. And when you think about just the sheer amount of work that it takes to prepare for a trip in our personal lives, having a team of people that's all they do is think about what do we need to do to give you basically the keys to the city so that when you land in a couple hours of this this orientation or city welcome, you're versed on how do you get around and how do you become a great global citizen or local community member of that place. So just before, during, and after, and then obviously there's a team there every step of the way to give you more info if you need it as well. All right, so hopefully we addressed this already throughout all of the past questions we have, and maybe just leave one last thought here before I address some of your live questions. But is remote year worth it? Why should I choose remote year versus just booking things on my own? What do you guys think?
I think it sounded like I'm not here to, I think for some people, booking things on your own, if you've got the time to do it, if you've got the inclination, for me, there's a couple of reasons why I would much prefer to do remote year personally. One is that I spent so long like choosing the right Airbnb and I get fixated over things like that, or the right accommodation. And there's even things like the security, like which area do I go to? Like it's so hard to even just look at a map and be like, imagine somewhere like Istanbul, a city of 18 million people. Like, how do you know which area to go to when you've got limited time? When you're working, you've still got to do your 9 to 5 or whatever hours you're doing. You don't have that much free time. So I want to make sure that I'm going to the right areas, means that I can access what I want to enjoy the city the most. So for me, that's why, one of the main reasons that I would choose remote year. And also, if I want to go traveling, there's so many people I know that would want to, but can't. And then remote year provides that community to do people with.
Great.
Yeah, to echo that, it's the luxury of having an organization do all the thinking for you. And, just like how we are, a bit of a tagline for us is you bring your job and we'll handle everything else. Truer words have never been spoken.
I love that. Yeah, I think the last thing I would just add is, when all of us travel personally in our lives, we know there's a difference between when we go online and start Googling all the things to do, what to do, where do I get good Wi-Fi, where should I stay, what parts of town, etc. Versus when we go somewhere and we know there's a friend or a contact there, our whole lives and the whole experience shifts because there's somebody who is vetting all of the answers that they give you through the lens of who you are, what you're interested in. And so it sounds really crazy, but even for instance, if we're planning a safari, for instance, or a weekend experience, even though there may not be Wi-Fi in some aspect that's off the grid or whatever, what our team will tell you is like, hey, here's some things to think about. Here's what the setup looks like. Here's what the experience is like. And by the way, there's Wi-Fi in the lodge or the lobby, for instance. So there's a lot of things that our team thinks through and gives you those recommendations as if you have a great local friend or resource on the ground. And that's just invaluable. And the community.
Tell you how grateful. Like I was say, I fly tonight just after this call to Medellin, and the team just sent me a message saying, "Oh, we've organised for you to be picked up in the airport." I can't tell you the small things like that mean so much. Like that, I don't need to think about it. I don't need to worry about where I get the taxi from. I don't need to. Oh my gosh, it's a dream for me.
Exactly. Awesome. So hopefully we address a lot of these questions throughout the call. So I won't go through these again, but you guys know that you can always reach out to us at nation@remoteyear.com as well. And I'm going to stop sharing for a second because I see some chats that came in. So I'm just going to read these off really fast and make sure that we address these as fast as possible. So number one question that we got in the chat box, what kind of visa do I need for remote year? So actually, and do I need to get a work visa? So that's completely up to you. But actually, the majority of people who go on our programs just visit as a tourist. You're able to do this because you're actually going there with a primary reason of being a tourist, and you happen to have your laptop and your job and ability to be productive as well. So again, up to you, but that's how most people travel on our programs. Number 2 question, why are some destination prices different at different times of the year? So this is like almost anywhere in the hospitality industry or even on flights or hotel bookings. There's always a range based on the seasonality, availability, demand. There's a lot of factors that go into it, but that's why you might see differences in terms of monthly prices or from destination to destination across all of our programs. And then next question, sorry, I'm just barreling through to make sure I get as many of your questions answered as possible. Are excursions, food, and travel during the whole program out of pocket? What's not included and what's included? So we mentioned earlier already, a lot of the platform is included, like accommodations, workspace, the local team support. Some of the experiences are included, like I mentioned, the city welcome experience, walking tour, a language and culture crash course, farewell event, and then various community events throughout the month as well. Sometimes those come with food, but that's not always the expectation. So if you join a remote year program, what you usually should show up with is, the ability to fund, for instance, your food, and you have the ability to cook in your apartments or to eat out, but that's the biggest one. And also any other really cool experiences that you want to book from our internal marketplace as well. And then a question on how do we ensure we can explore with other remote year members on the trip with us, or is everyone on their own to do their own thing once they're in a destination? Do you want to say that one, Daniel? Experience?
Yeah, absolutely. So everybody lands on the same, or generally lands on the same day and leaves on the same day. You're definitely sort of a cohort. The majority of people who join remote years because they want to be part of a community. So by the nature, most people, are looking for people to do other things with. That said, part of what we also talk about in sort of the preparation is just respecting boundaries, and it's absolutely okay to do as much or little as you want to do. There should be no pressure. Some people just like to come along and just do a couple of things, maybe because they've got loads of work on, maybe they're quite introverted. They just like knowing the security of the communities there. Nobody is expected to do everything at all times at all. Everybody needs to do what they're comfortable with.
Yep. And then I'll keep going. If you guys have to drop off, feel free, but I'd love to just go through all the questions we've gotten. And then the next one is the RY representative actually on the trip with us members to ask questions or guide us on the trip? Yes, Daniel mentioned on every single program, we have a remote year local staff / community leader. So they're on the ground with you that you can direct questions to. And then also there's ways that you can reach out to any of us in the team as well who are not on the ground as well if there's any questions, concerns, or also anything else that we can help you with. Another question is, can I join short experiences to get a feel of remote year without joining a full 1-month program? Yes, we talked about this earlier. If you are a member of our community, there are other ways to participate in remote year experiences besides our 1-month, 4-month, and 12-month programs. For instance, a few days with us on a Nation Fest, or 1 day or a couple hours at a local meetup, or in any of our experiences around the world if we have room. And then also our 1-week global adventures as well, which are really fun. So lots of ways, yes. Next question, are there typically any people on remote year that don't have remote jobs from home? So yes, there are, but the majority of people, given that we are all about remote working, 70% do work remotely while they're on the programs. Also, because of just how we're set up, we usually have people who are on pursuing some personal passion or pursuit, even if they're not doing a full-time job, for instance, writing a book or doing a photo book, or retiring and working on a project or doing positive impact. So there's many ways that you can be productive on our program. And then there's a lot of questions about just our destinations. So where are we around the world? So we are in Latin America, Europe, Africa, Asia, and United States. So we're not in all of those places 12 months a year, but usually if you look on our website, you'll be able to find times or places around the year that you're interested in. Some questions were, why is there only 1 or 2 African countries? Actually, we launched into Africa last year into 4 destinations. One is South Africa, where we've been for quite a long time, Kenya, Tanzania, and then also Senegal. We're actually going to be launching, actually we're in Morocco as of this month, back again. So continue to just like look on our website. We're constantly looking at places that work. And when those work, we add more times of year there. And we're also constantly looking for great places to add to our itineraries as well. So keep looking back. And then in the workspaces, is there a place I can make calls quietly? Yes, in every co-working space, we actually do have call booths or conference rooms as part of our co-working spaces. That being said, everybody is on our program. So we are generally just asking people to not sit in those all day and kind of share amongst themselves between each other on call booths and conference rooms. Each co-working space is a little bit different in terms of how you book them. Sometimes it's writing your name on a form. Sometimes it's booking it digitally. But yes, there are private spaces that you can make call, but those will be shared with among all the people on the program. So keep that in mind. And then can we use the yearly program to help people live abroad more permanently? Yes, that's up to you. We've actually had people traveling with Remote Year for years, just booking 12-month programs completely back to back. Now that we have 1-month programs, you can also create your own journey depending on your times as well. So some people might want to stay somewhere for 3 months and then move on to the next spot. So completely up to you, and it's pretty flexible how you can put those together. And then last question maybe I'll say is where do you announce your local meetups? So if you're a member of our community, we have, like I said, a digital hub where we advertise anything that's going on across our nation, whether that's something that our nation members created themselves or something that we are hosting. So in our hub, there's an event section where we always post upcoming trips, upcoming local experiences, upcoming events that may be close to you as well. So I think I will stop there because there's quite a lot of questions that continue to come in, but I hope that you guys found this valuable. And if we didn't address one of your questions today, please do reach out to us at nation@remoteyear.com. And then this was so much fun. So I actually hope that we can continue doing this every couple of weeks or maybe every month and just gather some great people and perspectives that we can bring on here to share more of that with you guys. So thank you so much to all of you guys for joining. Really appreciate you guys. And I actually hope we can see your beautiful faces on the road. See you soon.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.